Welcome to the Application of Sports Psychology podcast. Today, Ella Harris will be on the show to discuss how the principles used in sports psychology are also applicable with some modification to the realm of exercise.
Hi, and thanks for having me.
Can you introduce yourself for everyone?
Hi, everyone. My name is Ella Harris. I am an exercise psychologist. I have a background as an athlete, as I was a Division II cross-country and track athlete in college. After graduation, I had to learn how to maintain my fitness and adapt to life as a non-athlete. Now, my goal is to help others do the same.
The goal of this podcast is to destigmatize mental health concerns in athletics. In your opinion, what is the current view of mental health in the world of sports?
Now more than ever, mental health concerns are being taken very seriously, especially clinical mental health conditions such as depression and anxiety. The International Society of Sports Psychology think tank brought together 7 experts of sports psychology to unify many international organizations on the current progress and consensus of the field. This group came to the consensus, quote, psychological demands must be balanced with strategies to support mental health. Discussions are becoming more and more common among athletes, as well as through organizations advocating for the destigmatization of mental health, such as Voice in Sport.
In your opinion, what is the relationship between mental skills and performance? Can you expand on this concept?
The basis of sports psychology is to improve performance by improving and controlling mental factors such as motivation, arousal, self-confidence, etc. It is important to understand the correlation between these factors in order to give a comprehensive review of a client. But it goes beyond the clinical setting. Mental performance must be acknowledged by athletic department staff, coaches, and athletes in order for physical performance to be optimized. This is especially true when there are concerns with one's mental performance.
Today, we are here to discuss your client and how you are able to help them achieve their goals. Could you give us some more background on your client?
Absolutely. This client is less focused on sports and more focused on exercise, but we can still apply these similar concepts. My client, we'll call him Phil, is a former collegiate cross-country and track athlete who competed at the Division I level. He was highly successful within his region and was a 4-time All-Region Award recipient and was even a 1-time All-American Award recipient. Now it's about 8 years later. He is 30 years old, an accountant at a major firm. He has 2 kids and a wife. His kids are 5 years old and 6 months old. And right now he's struggling to maintain healthy weight after trying and failing many workout routines and diets. His ultimate goal is to lose 20 pounds and make some sustainable lifestyle changes.
This is a situation that many former athletes have found themselves in or currently are in. Why would consulting a mental performance coach be helpful, and at what point should one consider hiring one?
I would recommend someone to a mental performance coach if they are looking to improve their mental strength, mainly through improving self-regulation and how to deal with stress. When to hire a mental performance coach is a little trickier. It typically comes when someone's trying to accomplish very specific goals, but it can also be helpful if you have been struggling with an aspect of your training and cannot resolve it on your own.
What was your process like for this client?
Phil hired me for a 6-week period. During this time, we met 4 separate times with our intent to create a more sustainable lifestyle change and see strong progress towards his goals in this time period.
Can you walk us through the first meeting?
We met on a Monday evening. We chose this day because Phil's oldest daughter does not have any after-school activities, and his wife was able to look after the kids while he was gone. We decided to meet in a private room of the local library.
It's great that you were able to create such a successful environment in an atypical space. Once introductions have been made and the meeting had started, what was the topic of your discussion?
The discussion during this first meeting centered around the methods of weight loss Phil had already tried, his successes, failures, and motivation. Some of the things he had previously tried include running. As a former cross-country and track athlete, he tried to take on his previous running regimen. This means he was running upwards of 50 to 60 miles a week with multiple running track workouts. He also committed to weightlifting 5 times per week. On the dietary side, he tried a ketogenic diet. This means he consumed low amounts of carbohydrates, approximately 10% of his overall caloric consumption, high amounts of fat, up to 70%, and 20% protein, and these proteins were very high quality, such as fish and beans. He did see rapid weight loss, but he had low energy, sleep issues, and digestive discomfort. The Canadian Family Physicians in 2018 found that in a study of over 1,500 people, the rate of weight loss on a ketogenic diet dramatically lowers after 5 months. It was also found that the participants gained the weight they had lost slowly after the 5-month mark. Phil gained back the weight very quickly, as predicted by this study. He found that he had to make double the meals since his kids and wife did not want to eat the types of food required by the keto diet. This ended up adding stress to his life and led to demotivation in terms of diet.
Alright, so the dietary plan was unsuccessful, but were the different methods of exercise successful?
He told me that he enjoyed the types of exercise he was engaging in and that it felt good to get his legs under him when it came to running.
This all sounds like good signs.
He reported that it was difficult to keep up with his routine since he wanted to prioritize spending time with his family and attending his older daughter's extracurricular activities. Additionally, he found it difficult to find time to exercise, especially since he was doing it alone. But after a few weeks, he developed a stress fracture in his foot.
Phil sounds like he is highly motivated. What has caused his motivation to falter since he has tried these nutritional and exercise plans?
He definitely started off extremely motivated. His intensity of effort was higher than the average exerciser, most likely due to his intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is the desire to complete an activity for inherent satisfaction. This mindset is common in runners, especially distance runners, as the majority of their training is completed alone and with very little external reward for their accomplishments. Unfortunately, this worked against him at this stage of his life. He tried to train as if he was 10 years younger and was still in competitive shape. This caused burnout and injury.
Is burnout a common outcome for beginner exercisers?
A Kim 2016 study studied burnout in recreational golfers over the age of 29. Although this was specific to recreational golfers, the findings can be inferred to other recreational exercisers as well. It was found that there was a very strong correlation between the loss of value and the exhaustion of body and mind. This strongly relates to Phil's case because he was training like he was still in college. There was a loss of value due to the lack of a competitive environment. Additionally, he became physically exhausted due to the rapid increase in exercise in his daily life. The mental exhaustion came in 2 ways. First, he was exercising alone and therefore lacked social support, and additionally, he felt like he was not around his kids enough due to the time he was spending exercising.
This was a lot of information that was covered in the first meeting. How do you accumulate all this information to move forward?
That is a great question. I had a few key takeaways about Phil's lifestyle and mentality. First, his priority was his family. He is dedicated to maintaining a high level of involvement and support in his daughter's lives. Next, through the conversation, I saw Phil did not have any goals. There are 3 types of goals: outcome, performance, and process. It is important for Phil to have all 3 goals to help facilitate the behavior change process. For our ideal results, goals should be moderately difficult, short and long term, and specific. Finally, his approach to motivation can be closely described by the trait-centered view. This means that his individual characteristics drive his motivation and desire to succeed, but this does not negate environmental factors that impact motivation. Phil failed at creating a supportive environment, which led him to burnout.
Wow, this is a lot of information that you were able to extract from one meeting. After this initial meeting, how long was the gap between the first and second meeting?
There was a 3-day gap between meetings. This time allowed me to analyze what Phil had told me, develop further questioning, and create an exercise and dietary plan for him.
Alright, and what plans did you develop for Phil?
Well, before we look at the plan, it is important to cover a few more topics that we talked about in that second meeting.
And what were the topics that you considered?
We discussed 3 more topics that gave me further insight into his mentality. First, we discussed whether he likes training alone or in groups. He told me that due to his background in cross country and track, he enjoys running alone as he uses this time to process the events of the day, but he feels underprepared to lift weights alone and therefore would prefer a group setting with a coach. Next, we discussed the importance of variety. He did not express a preference for steady routines or high variability. He stated as long as he was seeing progress, he would be satisfied. Finally, we had a long conversation to determine Phil's goals. His goals were to complete a CrossFit Game Open and finish in the top 12,000 in the Western North America in 2024, to lose 20 pounds by September 30th, as well as to lose 5 pounds each month, to keep his heart rate under 150 beats per minute and his steps per minute over 160 on each one of his runs.
This has been so much information and a lot of factors to consider. What was the process for creating a plan that will help Phil reach his 20-pound weight loss goal and create maintainable lifestyle changes?
There are 2 elements to his plan. The first is the difference between his nutritional plan and exercise plan, and the second is how he will track and be accountable to these plans.
Let's start with his exercise plan.
His exercise will be tracked via a Garmin watch that he already owns, which can track a variety of different exercise types. Monday through Friday, he will spend 20 minutes of his 45-minute lunch break on a walk. On Monday and Friday mornings, he will attend a CrossFit class at his local gym from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m., which is before his kids wake up for the day and aligns with his current sleep schedule. This replaces the habit of mindless scrolling through social media that typically occurs during this time. He will also go on a run on Mondays and Tuesdays after work. This run will start at 3 miles at a pace where his steps per minute will be over 160 and his beats per minute will be under 150. This information can be accessed real time via his Garmin watch. This plan accounts for 5 days of movement each week, as well as 4 days of moderately vigorous exercise and 3 days of rest. Phil feels confident that he will be internally motivated to complete his 2 runs per week and walk every day at his lunch break. He will be held accountable to go to the CrossFit class due to the fees that are incurred when classes are missed.
That is a very thorough plan, but seems well balanced and maintainable. How will his diet accompany his exercise plan?
His new diet will be focused on 2 factors. The first is decreasing the amount of calories consumed and increasing the consumption of fruit and vegetables. His current caloric consumption is dominated by primarily simple carbohydrates. He has admitted that his snacking behavior is largely due to habit, not because he is hungry. He also states that his serving size of carbohydrates during meals is excessive in an attempt to fill him up. He also told me that he typically only has 1 fruit and 1 vegetable per day. Therefore, his nutritional plan will be to add 1 serving of fruit at both breakfast and lunch, and a serving of vegetables at both lunch and dinner. He will also replace any snacks throughout the day with fruits and vegetables. Not only will this increase his intake of valuable vitamins and minerals, but will also satisfy his appetite in place of excessive carbohydrates. Next, he will limit his carbohydrate consumption at each meal to 1 cup.
A number of questions arise from this plan. How will Phil track this plan, and how will he be held accountable? Is this sustainable considering his family's diet?
He will be tracking each serving of fruits and vegetables he consumes on an easy-to-use app on his phone. This will be a sustainable change because his wife agreed to also follow this nutritional plan and implement it into the lives of his daughters as well. His youngest daughter is too young to be affected by this, but it will change the diet of their oldest. They have acknowledged that she may resist this change at first, but will persist because it is also in the best interest of her long-term health.
Those are great incentives to stay on track.
I agree. At this point, I was very hopeful that Phil would be successful, and this concluded the 2nd meeting.
And when was the 3rd meeting?
The 3rd meeting occurred at the beginning of the 4th week we were working together, and 18 days into the implementation of his new exercise and nutrition plan.
What was the focus of this meeting?
We discussed his progress so far. He had found high levels of success in his nutritional plan and his commitment to the CrossFit class. He said he feels successful in these areas because he is doing them with social support, coming from either his wife or the class. But he was unmotivated to walk every day during lunch and said he didn't want to go on his runs after work because once he sat down on the couch, he lost motivation.
How were you able to change his motivation to encourage him to complete these 2 essential aspects of his exercise program?
To motivate him to walk during his lunch breaks, his coworkers enthusiastically agreed to walk with him. This encourages almost a team-like dynamic. Since the barrier to his motivation for his runs was going home, he agreed to start running in the mornings on Tuesday and Thursdays at the same time as his CrossFit class on Mondays and Fridays. I believe this was the best course of action because he still enjoyed running but found it difficult to run after work.
Wow, that's a great plan. What was at the end of the 3rd meeting?
Yes, I agreed. Our next and final meeting was on the last day of his 6-week program.
What were the final results of your coaching and intervention?
Over the 6-week period, Phil did not accomplish his overall goal of losing 20 pounds, but he is on track to accomplish all of the goals he had outlined. And he was successful in losing that 5 pounds per month while we were working together. With this viewpoint, Phil's program was considered to be effective. There were 3 major reasons that can be attributed to his success. It is well known that for weight loss to occur, caloric intake must be lower than the caloric expenditure. The diet plan was able to lower caloric intake by reducing the amount of simple carbohydrates consumed and replacing them with lower calorie fruits and vegetables. Ford et al. Found in a 2015 study that satiety can be achieved when caloric intake decreases if the replacement food is a similar volume and/or has a, quote, longer oral processing time. After the modification timing of Phil's exercise, he noticed more rapid weight loss. In 2019, Willis et al. Conducted a study exploring the relationship between weight loss after a 10-month period and timing of exercise. He found that there was statistically significant higher rate of weight loss if exercise was completed in the morning. This explains why Phil lost more weight after I modified his exercise plan so that his moderate to high intensity exercise was consistently completed in the morning. Finally, Phil's weight loss success so far can be attributed to the type of workouts he is completing and the associated percentage of his heart rate maximum. Carey in 2009 found that the maximal fat oxidation occurred when the participant's heart rate was between 60.2% and 80% of their maximum heart rate. Both CrossFit and running typically places Phil within this heart rate zone. This proves that the type of exercise he is participating in is optimal for his goals.
Wow, that is some great research to support Phil's weight loss. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your experience.
Thank you for having me.